A very good morning. Welcome to News on the Hour. I am Anil Thomas. Over the next 60 minutes, this is your power-packed news bulletin, not only for India but also the rest of the world. We cut all the noise and bring you news as it happens, news that is facts and nothing more. Well, let's get started in what's in store in this particular 60 minutes. Well, we've got action from the poll-bound states, looking at a lot of international stories, also taking a look at sports and entertainment. But first up, let's get started with the top headlines at the top of this hour. Campaigning hots up in poll-bound states. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be addressing election rallies in West Bengal and Assam today. Central Election Committee of the BJP deliberates on names of candidates for the upcoming elections. Announces 4 candidates for West Bengal elections. Tamil Nadu Deputy Chief Minister begins his election campaign for assembly elections for Tamil Nadu. Prime Minister Narendra Modi shares concern on the rising number of COVID-19 cases in the country, calls for quick, decisive action to control the pandemic, asks to focus on 70 high-reporting districts, warns that if the pandemic is not stopped now, then a countrywide outbreak can occur. India continues to scale new heights in its fight against COVID-19. Vaccinates 3 crore 71 lakh so far across the country. More than 20 lakh vaccines administered in a single day. US Federal Reserve projects a rapid jump in US economic growth and inflation this year as the COVID-19 crisis winds down, repeats its pledge to keep its target interest rate near zero for years to come. Wall Street and Nasdaq end in green, Indian markets to react positive. In Myanmar, protests continue against military coup. Protesters include young women and children as they demand the end to the military coup and restoration of democracy. US President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris condemned the Atlanta shootings and expressed concerns about violence against Asian Americans. Biden says brutality against Asian Americans is very troubling. Alleged gunman who killed 8 people charged with murder as police continue to identify victims. And in cricket, India to take on England in the 4th match of the ongoing T20 series in Ahmedabad. Match will be played behind closed doors. India look to level the 5-match series as England lead 2-1. Well, those were the headlines. Now for the stories in detail, starting first up with election campaigning that's in the poll-bound states and union territories picking up pace and going full throttle as Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be addressing election rallies in West Bengal and Assam today. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will address an election rally in Purulia in West Bengal. Later in the day, Prime Minister will address a rally in Karimganj in Assam. Well, the meeting of the BJP Central Election Committee was held on Wednesday evening to finalize the remaining list of candidates for the upcoming West Bengal Assembly elections. The meeting took place at the party's headquarters in New Delhi. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, BJP President JP Nadda, Home Minister Amit Shah and other senior party leaders attended the meeting. BJP has already finalized candidates for 4 phases of West Bengal polls. It has also finalized almost all candidates for assembly polls in Assam, Kerala, Tamil Nadu and Union Territory of Puducherry. BJP announced the names of 4 candidates for West Bengal elections: Chandan Mandal from Barupur Purba, Bidan Puroy from Falta, Papya Dikhari from Ulberi Dakshin and Anupam Ghosh from Jagat Balapur. Well, for more on the story, Rajiv Bhattacharya joining us on the phone line from Kolkata. Good morning, Rajiv. Looking at Prime Minister's visit to West Bengal, especially to the Purulia region to address an election rally, how do you see things there on ground zero? Is it a two-way contest there, the way things stands between the BJP and the TMC?
Yes, the big event of the day, obviously, is the Prime Minister's visit to the state, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be addressing an election rally at Navkunj Maidan, which is about 12 kilometers away from Purulia town, and according to local BJP sources, they are expecting a turnout of a few lakhs. So that's the big event slated for today. And yes, of course, the Purulia region, during the last elections, during the last Lok Sabha elections, the BJP had done well this year. And therefore, the Prime Minister's address, especially the Prime Minister's presence, obviously going to infuse the workers and the partymen and the candidates to put up their best for the coming elections. And talking about your second question as to whether it's a two-way contest, well, of course, if you go by the media and go by the television footage that we are seeing every day, it would look like that, but there are local factors at play, and there's also the Sangyukt Morcha, as they like to call themselves now, the combination of the Congress, the left, and the new outfit called the ISF, the Indian Secular Front, who are fighting elections together. So there are some places, some seats where, not particularly in Purulia, but in some parts of the state, where they could, upset the calculations, or if not being able to upset the calculations, could clear the pitch for some major political parties or candidates. Therefore, all in all, a very interesting fight ahead, electoral battle ahead for the polls in West Bengal, and could be three-cornered contest. Anil, yes.
Okay, Rajiv. Also put this into perspective. The BJP West Bengal State Chief Dilip Ghosh, clearly indicating that he's not going to fight elections, but he's going to supervise the entire, the magnum opus, especially when it comes to, 8-phase elections there in the state of West Bengal. How do you see this particular development?
Well, you see, after some Lok Sabha candidates were put up as assembly candidates for the assembly elections this time, there was a demand from a section of party workers that the party president, the state party president, should also contest, which the state party president yesterday categorically ruled out that he's not going to contest. And a BJP source told us that there have been instances in the past that chief ministers of states where the BJP has been able to come to power or came to power will later contested a by-election from a state seat and went to the assembly and became chief ministers. So that is another possibility which is there. So categorically ruling out right now does not mean that things might change in the future. Anil.
Okay, also, put this very briefly for us. The BJP is fighting to, dethrone the 10 years of Mamata Banerjee government there in West Bengal. And the Prime Minister's rally today comes just a day after Mamata Banerjee's released the manifesto of her party. So clearly, very much on the lines of, giving another blueprint that could mean Sonar Bangla for the people of West Bengal.
Right. Not only this rally, in the other election rallies that the Prime Minister has held so far in the state, the Prime Minister has, in fact, in the Brigade Parade Ground at Kolkata, where he attended a mammoth rally, the Prime Minister has categorically stated that Sonar Bangla doesn't really mean a change in government, it means a change in the mindset of the administration, of the people, and everywhere. And it is an indication of all-round development of the state, which the BJP has in mind when it speaks about Sonar Bangla. And today, obviously, one can expect the Prime Minister to harp on these themes once again, and especially, as you said, it will be interesting to watch after yesterday's release of the manifesto by the Trinamool Congress.
Okay, you've got a busy day ahead. Thank you and appreciate you joining us this morning with those updates there on the Prime Minister's twin visit to the state of West Bengal first, followed by the state of Assam that goes to polls. Remember, both the state goes to poll at the same time. Assam goes to polls in 3 phases, while West Bengal goes to polls in 8 phases, with the first phase of polling taking place on the 27th. So less than 10 days left for the first phase of voting to take place both in Assam and West Bengal, while the results for the 4 states and union territories will be announced on the 2nd of May. Well, staying with elections, but shifting down south, where AIADMK coordinator and the Deputy Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, O. Paneerselvan, will begin his election campaign today for the Tamil Nadu Assembly elections. Tamil Nadu goes to polls in a single phase. Voting takes place on the 6th of April, while the counting of votes, as I mentioned earlier, will take place on 2nd of May. Well, both DMK as well as AIDMK cashing in on their leaders, especially AIADMK cashing in on Jayalalitha, while DMK looking forward to carry forward the legacy of Karunanidhi. Well, MDMK, that's the MDMK chief, and MP Vaiko today released the party's election manifesto for the upcoming assembly polls in Tamil Nadu at the party office in Chennai. This took place on Wednesday. I beg your pardon. The key promises in the manifesto include ensuring jobs in Tamil Nadu for Tamils. Well, Abhishek Jha, correspondent, joining us for more updates on this particular elections. Abhishek, the way things stands, do you somewhere feel this particular election is about national parties revolving around regional parties and looking to make it count in the southern state?
Of course, Anil, see, in Tamil Nadu, we have seen in the last 3-4 decades, the parties that have mattered has been DMK and AIDMK. Other parties, the fringe elements, we can call them. In fact, national parties like BJP and Congress, they also have to have an alliance only to survive in the state. This time also, we are seeing that BJP has got almost 20 seats in an alliance with all India ADMK. And Congress has also got almost 2 dozen odd seats with alliance with DMK. So even the national parties are not as strong, influencer, or they can't negotiate for more seats because they know the reality of this state, that the politics will revolve around these two parties as of now, and they are also made peace with it, and they are also to survive in this state and to reach out to the larger spectrum of voters. They will have to be a part of that alliance.
Okay. Also, Abhishek, throw more light on this this battle of outsider versus local debate. That's very much prevalent there, especially in Tamil Nadu. How do you see it? Why are leaders preferring not to fight from their constituencies but move to other constituencies and fight from there?
Talking about one seat, like I would, for example, talk about Coimbatore seat. For Coimbatore seat, J. Jayakumar, like the Congress candidate from this seat, he has said that he is a local person and he knows the issues there. He is contesting against Kamal Hassan and Vanati Srinivasan. Vanati Srinivasan is from BJP candidate here. She is from Vellore. So there is however, he's been working here for quite some time. Her social work has been there for very long. She has been organizing NGOs and self-help of women for so many years there. So kind of she is also part of the very culture of South Coimbatore. However, that label of she doesn't belong to this place is something that Congress candidate is trying to catch upon her. Kamal Hassan, who has got better percentage of votes in the last election in Coimbatore, has chosen maybe for a considering Coimbatore, South Coimbatore as a safe option, because across the state, if you see, Kamal Hassan party has got only 4% of votes, less than 4% of votes during the last election. So to ensure a victory margin on any particular seat, that much of vote percentage will not be sufficient, and probably that is one reason why Kamal Hassan has chosen this seat to ensure his victory and to have a smooth ride. So across the seats, across the Chennai, we talk about Chennai and other constituencies also, mostly the candidates have preferred to go and fight on those seats where they have some background or they think that they can have some advantage. Rather than being an insider and outsider, there are these issues of insider and outsider, but then those issues will not matter as much as the political parties or candidates are trying to do power.
Abhishek, also give us a sense with regards to the Election Commission, the amount of unaccounted for cash that has been caught. Also, I believe and I read a story about the Election Commission removing the IG police there. Throw more light on these two stories, in these two developments.
So, talking about cash seizure, Anil, this is nothing new for Tamil Nadu politics. In fact, Tamil Nadu is one of the states, unfortunately, where in election times a lot of huge amount of money are hoarded from one place to another place. And
Okay.
this is one state you will see by the end of this whole election period, Tamil Nadu would only be the largest state where the cash seizure, liquor seizure will happen. Otherwise, the states, other political campaigning or the voting day, everything remains very peaceful compared to other states. But however, this cash trail is something that this state has not been able to cope up with, and still a lot of cash flows during this election time. Talking about this IG transfer, Election Commission is taking all the measures it can. In fact, observers, revenue department officers, they have been put in for strict implementation of all the illegal movement of money, liquor, or any substance that can lure voters or that can illegally try to influence the voting margin, or anything that can illegally or illicit way try to influence the campaign. So in that way only this whole transfer posting of administrative officers are happening in the state, and election commission is all in charge of carrying out a smooth and transparent and fair election process in the state.
Okay, we'll leave it there. You've got a busy month ahead. Keep yourself hydrated well, especially in that summer down south, and appreciate you joining us with those updates there, especially from the poll-bound state of Tamil Nadu, which goes to polls on the 6th of March, which goes to polls on the 6th of April, I beg your pardon, and the counting of votes takes place on the 2nd of May. Well, shifting focus now to the battle against COVID-19. Prime Minister Narendra Modi interacted with the chief ministers of various states regarding the COVID-19 situation through video conference on Wednesday. During the interaction, Prime Minister stressed the need to take quick and decisive steps to stop the emerging second peak of corona immediately. More in this report.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the chief ministers on the urgent and immediate issue of surging cases of COVID-19 in many states. Rising cases of COVID-19 in some states have raised alarms all over, particularly the way in which the graph of infection is surging northwards. It has invited prompt response from the centre. Prime Minister was candid in his remarks and gave a call for each and everyone present in the virtual meeting to get their act together. At the outset, he underlined the clear and present danger that the resurgent virus cases in few states pose to the entire nation and called for quick and decisive steps.
देश के 70 जिलों में तो पिछले कुछ हफ्तों में यह वृद्धि 150% से भी ज्यादा है, 150% से ज्यादा। अगर हम इस बढ़ती हुई महामारी को यही नहीं रोकेंगे तो देशव्यापी आउटब्रेक की स्थिति बन सकती है। हमें कोरोना की उस उभरती हुई सेकंड पीक को तुरंत रोकना ही होगा, और इसके लिए हमें क्विक और डिसाइसिव कदम उठाने होंगे।
Prime Minister stressed that confidence should not become overconfidence and the success in controlling the spread so far should not translate to carelessness.
टेस्ट, ट्रैक और ट्रीट, इसको लेकर भी हमें उतनी ही गंभीरता की जरूरत है जैसे कि हम पिछले एक साल से करते आ रहे हैं। और आरटी-पीसीआर टेस्ट रेट 70% से ऊपर रखना बहुत अहम है।
The most important aspect of PM's intervention was about the resurgence of virus in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities this time and the imminent threat of a spillover to the rural areas.
इस बार हमारे Tier 2 और Tier 3 शहर जो शुरू में प्रभावित नहीं हुए थे, उनके आसपास के क्षेत्र प्रभावित ज्यादा हो रहे हैं। देखिए, इस लड़ाई में हम सफलतापूर्वक बच पाए हैं, उसका एक कारण था कि हम गांवों को इससे मुक्त रख पाए थे। लेकिन Tier 2, Tier 3 सिटी पहुंचा तो इसको गांव में जाने से देर नहीं लगेगी और गांवों को संभालना हमारी व्यवस्थाएं बहुत कम पड़ जाएगी। और इसलिए हमें छोटे शहरों में टेस्टिंग को बढ़ाना होगा। हमें छोटे शहरों में रेफरल सिस्टम और एम्बुलेंस नेटवर्क के ऊपर विशेष ध्यान देना होगा।
Prime Minister also flagged the issue of wastage of vaccine by many states and stated that it is a serious lapse on the part of administration.
देश में वैक्सीनेशन की गति लगातार बढ़ रही है। हम एक दिन में 30 लाख लोगों को वैक्सीन करने के आंकड़े को भी एक बार तो पार कर चुके हैं। लेकिन इसके साथ ही हमें वैक्सीन डोसेज वेस्ट होने की समस्या को बहुत गंभीरता से लेना चाहिए। तेलंगाना और आंध्र प्रदेश में 10% से ज्यादा वैक्सीन वेस्टेज है। यूपी में भी वैक्सीन वेस्टेज करीब करीब वैसा ही है। वैक्सीन क्यों वेस्टेज हो रही है, इसकी भी राज्यों में समीक्षा होनी चाहिए और मैं मानता हूं हर रोज शाम को इसके मॉनिटरिंग की व्यवस्था रहनी चाहिए और हमारी सिस्टम को प्रोएक्टिव लोगों को कांटेक्ट करके एक साथ इतने लोग मौजूद रहें ताकि वैक्सीन वैक्सीन वेस्टेज न जाए, इसकी व्यवस्था होनी चाहिए।
Prime Minister has been proactive in dealing with the challenge of COVID-19 pandemic. He has led from the front and has addressed the nation 8 times on this issue over the past many months. He has also held 10 meetings with the chief ministers of states and union territories, including on Wednesday. Whether it be appealing about COVID precautions or announcing preventive measures, he has always kept the interest of all first and has not hesitated from taking tough decisions. His call is for all of India. This is the time for all of us to take cumulative action and work together to defeat the pandemic for once and all. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, for more on this story, we've got our correspondent from Mumbai joining us, Shama Mishra, joining us this morning to give us more updates, especially from the state of Maharashtra, which is now the epicenter of this particular COVID-19 battle, with 1,54,036 COVID-19 cases. Roughly around 23,000 cases being reported in a single day. So clearly an up spike or a spike, especially in the number of cases there in the state of Maharashtra. And Shama joining us this morning. Shama, good morning. Shama, good morning. Give us a sense of, how big or how grim is the battle. The Prime Minister's clarion call to act now to the states. But is the state, fighting this particular battle on a war footing? And what are the challenges, especially when it comes to people dropping their card? How are the authorities, coping up to the challenge?
The situation is definitely grim here in Maharashtra, and especially the areas which were not affected earlier in the 2020 pandemic time. New places in the areas of Vidarbha, these places are recording new cases, an upsurge in the cases since the time, say about the second week of February. Because till first week of February, we were seeing a limited number or controlled number rather of 2,500 to 3,000 new cases every day. But then these numbers started rising, and like you've mentioned, we have recorded more than 23,000 cases yesterday, and just a day before that it was more than 17,000. So you can count like more than 5,000 cases, upswing of more than 5,000 cases has been recorded in a single day. So the situation is definitely grim. The major challenges is also that people are letting their guards down. People are crowding, bazaars, theaters, eateries, these joints, thinking that the situation has improved, the whole pandemic is over, and that is why they are having a casual attitude. But then yes, definitely they have to maintain the COVID appropriate behavior, and that is why in all districts of Maharashtra, even in the Mahanagar Palika, the councils, the marshals are deployed, where they can have a check on people. Are they wearing their masks properly? Are they wearing it? They're not wearing it below their nose or the chin, and they are fined. So every day we are seeing new numbers or new records of people being fined. But this is not for the aim of fining people, but this is to tell them that it is not time yet to keep your masks out or anything like that. Apart from this, we are also seeing the state government is doing the vaccination drive on war footing, and we saw yesterday that around 2,74,000, more than 2,74,000 people were vaccinated, and the total is around 36,40,000 till date. So we are seeing these also centers are also being put up, booths are put up for vaccination drive, for enhancing the vaccination drive, and also the state health minister, he has requested the central government or the central health department that the vaccination production plant should also be shifted or added at Hopkins Institute, which is also an institute which deals in the entire chemicals and everything. Or if Bharat Biotech is interested, they can put up their own branch, and then they can produce the vaccines, so that we can get more vaccinations, because the vaccines that we have is left for 10 days only, and more vaccines are to be expected by the center. Also, the aim is to vaccinate 3 lakh people per day. Yes.
Okay, Shama, also put this into perspective. You have on one hand the cases, or there is a spike in the number of positive cases of COVID-19. But how's been the vaccination process in the state? Is it on a war footing? What's the number, purely in terms of numbers when you see over a week? What's been the rate of vaccination there in the state?
See, like I've mentioned, every day we are seeing more than 1,550,000 to 2,50,000 people are getting vaccinated. These doses are given, and these would be the first timers of the second phase, or the second doses of the health workers. That would be the first phase. So every day we are seeing new numbers coming to the fore, and after Prime Minister yesterday spoke to the chief ministers, the meeting and everything happened, we did see more rising numbers in the vaccination drive. So definitely it was boosted by the center's meeting, or the center's push, that the vaccination drive, or the number of vaccines given to people has increased. And like I mentioned earlier, that health minister is saying that the target for Maharashtra for Delhi is 3 lakh, and yesterday we saw like about 2,74,000 getting vaccinated. So yes, we are reaching that target, and the aim is definitely that all the first phase and the second phase people should be getting vaccinated at the earliest, so that those people who are at the maximum risk can be protected, and then people around, the other people, those who are not in these lists or not in these phases, can also start getting their shots. And this is the entire situation where the vaccination drive is also getting enhanced, or on war footing. And other than this,
Shama,
we are also seeing stringent measures being in various districts.
Okay, Shama, we'll leave it there. Thank you and appreciate you joining us with those updates there from the western state of Maharashtra. Clearly, things not looking good, but the state they're clearly taking steps now to keep things under control. As Shama put it together, roughly around 3 lakh vaccinations is what the state government is looking at. That's roughly around 21,000 in a week. The cases are rising, but the state government trying to do things on a war footing, and the Prime Minister actually stepping in, asking every state where we've seen a spike in cases to act now, so that we could take care of this particular pandemic and the second wave could be kept under check. The only silver lining that I see in this particular story is that even though there is a spike in the number of cases, we are seeing fewer deaths, so that makes things look pretty comfortable at this point in time. But remember, you cannot drop your guard, especially in this battle against COVID-19. Well, let's stay with that story on COVID-19. India crossing another important milestone in its fight against COVID-19 pandemic in the world's largest vaccination program. The cumulative number of COVID-19 vaccine doses administered in the country has now crossed 3,71 lakh in record time. A total of 3,71,43,255 vaccine doses have been given so far, out of which 20,78,719 vaccine doses were given till 7 p.m. on Wednesday. That's the 61st day of the nationwide COVID-19 vaccination program. Well, let's now also take a look at COVID-19 update from across the country on how things are. Over 17,000 people recovered and discharged in the last 24 hours. With this, the total number of recoveries in India has crossed 1,10,63,000. So we are moving into 1,10 lakh digits now in terms of recovery. And that's the number of people that have recovered in this battle against COVID-19, 1,10 lakh people. India's total active caseload now stands at 2,52,000. Numbers, this comprise just 2.20% of the total cases being reported in the country. The COVID-19 recovery rate in India, that's been stupendous. It's touched 96.41%. Cumulative number of COVID-19 vaccine doses administered in the country has crossed 3,71 lakhs. The perfect number there, or the rounding of number, 3,71 lakh 43,000 vaccine doses being administered across the country so far. With the vaccination drive crossing milestones, the efforts to track COVID-19 still going on pretty strong in the country. Well, with the better healthcare infrastructure facilities and test track treat method, a total of 23 crore 3,13,163 samples of COVID-19 being tested so far. Of these, 10,63,379 samples being tested on a single day. That's March 17th. 23 the total number is 23 crore 3,13,163 samples being tested so far in India. That's the cumulative number of tests that we have conducted in India since we began the battle against COVID-19. Well, moving to Parliament today, what's in store in Parliament? Well, Parliament is set to take up various important businesses. Union Minister Nitin Gadkari will make a statement in the Parliament regarding vehicle scrapping policy in Lok Sabha. The Appropriation Bill 2021 will be introduced for consideration and passage. Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman to move that bill to authorize payment and appropriation of certain further sums from and out of the Consolidated Fund of India for the services of the financial year 2020-21. Another important bill, the Constitution's Schedule Caste Order Amendment Bill 2021, will be moved in Lok Sabha by the Union Minister Tawarchand Gehlot. The bill will be moved in the lower house further to amend the Constitution on the Schedule Caste Order 1950 to modify the list of scheduled caste in the state of Tamil Nadu to be taken into consideration. In Rajya Sabha, Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will move the Insurance Amendment Bill 2021 for consideration and passage. The bill is to amend the Insurance Act of 1938 and it will be taken. Moving to international stories, an update on the Myanmar situation there. Protesters on motorcycles rode in southern Dubai district on Wednesday to demand an end to the military coup and restoration of democracy. The procession riding the 7.3-kilometer journey from Ninmao to Tizit, carrying flags and placards through villages. Bikers joined the Tizit villagers, included young women and children, as they chanted slogans on the seafront. Myanmar has been in turmoil since the military ousted the elected leader Aung San Suu Kyi and her government on the 1st of Feb in a coup, detaining her and the members of her party, drawing international condemnation. While U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin held meeting with the South Korean counterparts in Seoul on Thursday for further talks on the global cooperation and alliance between the two countries. Blinken is visiting Japan and South Korea along with the Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin in a bid to fortify Washington's alliances in Asia. It's the first overseas trip by the top-level members of President Joe Biden's administration. Speaking in Seoul on Wednesday, Blinken accused North Korea of committing systemic and widespread abuses against its own people and said the United States and its allies were committed to the denuclearization of North Korea.
The authoritarian regime in North Korea continues to commit systemic and widespread abuses against its own people. We must stand with people demanding their fundamental rights and freedoms and against those who repress them.
Well, Blinken also further said that China was using coercion and aggression, calling its posturing over Taiwan and Hong Kong in the East and South China Seas, where it had territorial disputes with Japan and other Asian countries.
China is using coercion and aggression to systematically erode autonomy in Hong Kong, undercut democracy in Taiwan, abuse human rights in Xinjiang and Tibet, and assert maritime claims in the South China Sea that violate international law.
Well, the alleged gunman who killed at least 8 people at 3 spas in Atlanta, Georgia, has been charged with murder as police begin to identify the victims. The suspect faces multiple counts of murder as well as aggravated assault. The attack comes amid a sharp uptick in crimes against Asian Americans. Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris condemned the Atlanta shooting and expressed concerns about any violence against Asian Americans. Biden said brutality against Asian Americans is very troubling.
But whatever the motivation here, I know that Asian Americans are very concerned because, as you know, I've been speaking about the brutality against Asian Americans for the last couple months, and I think it is very, very troubling. And but I'm making no connection at this moment to the motivation of the killer. I'm waiting for an answer from, as the investigation proceeds, from the FBI and from the Justice Department.
Well, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris called Tuesday's deadly shooting in Atlanta a tragic reminder that it was critical to always speak out about violence and express solidarity with Asian Americans who have experienced a rise in hate crimes. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken offered his condolences on Wednesday to families of victims killed in Atlanta shootings. He condemned the string of attacks at day spas in and around the U.S. city of Atlanta. He made the comment during talks with the South Korean foreign minister in Seoul.
We're horrified by this violence, which has no place in America or anywhere for that matter. And I want to offer our deepest condolences to the families and friends of those who died, and to everyone in the Korean community who is shaken and deeply disturbed by this incident. We are as well, and we will stand up for the right of our fellow Americans and Korean Americans to be safe, to be treated with dignity and respect.
Well, moving to more further international stories, but shifting to Europe, where the Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte claimed an overwhelming victory in elections on Wednesday, vowing to use his fourth term in office to rebuild the country after the coronavirus pandemic. The pro-EU D66 party, which has challenged Rutte's European policy as part of his current government, is set to surge into second place. The election is widely seen as a referendum on the government's performance during the coronavirus crisis. Netherlands is one of the first major European Union economies to hold elections during the COVID-19 crisis, and voting was held over 3 days to prevent spreading of the virus, which has killed more than 16,000 people and infected over 1 million in the nation of 17 million. Well, a cache of fireworks exploded in a California neighborhood, killing at least 2 people as well as a dog. A video viral on Twitter showed plumes of smoke and fireworks in the neighborhood. Ontario Fire Department said that 3 people also suffered injuries and 2 homes were destroyed by the blaze. Well, Ukraine's foreign minister Dmytro Kuleba has criticized a report in the downing of a Ukrainian passenger plane last year as a cynical attempt by the Iranian authorities to hide the true reasons behind the crash. Kuleba said that Ukraine will not allow Iran to hide the truth and avoid responsibility for the crime. He said the document does not cover all the circumstances. It reveals neither causes of the tragedy nor the chain of events which led to it. He further added that this is not a report but a collection of manipulations aimed not at establishing the truth but at acquitting the Islamic Republic of Iran. Iran's civil aviation body has blamed an error by the airline defense operator in a final report on the cause of an Ukrainian passenger plane crashing in Jan 2020 that killed all 176 persons on board. Iran's Revolutionary Guard shot down the Ukraine International Airlines flight with ground-to-air missiles on Jan 8, 2020, shortly after it had taken off from Tehran. Well, Spanish health workers revived a toddler who was among the 52 sub-Saharan African migrants rescued off the island of Gran Canaria in the Atlantic on Wednesday. Shortly after a Coast Guard boat with the migrants, many of them suffering from diseases, docked at the Gran Canaria port, 2 Red Cross medics rushed to the scene and started performing CPR chest compressions on the girl lying on the concrete pier. The toddler was one of the 10 people, including 6 children and a pregnant woman, who had to be taken to hospital due to the particular health issue, according to the Canary Island Emergency Service. Other migrants waited patiently on the deck while those in need of medical attention were taken ashore. Well, protesters freed 4 police officers from behind bars in Haiti's capital on Wednesday as demonstrations over a police raid on a gang stronghold and that anger at state authorities roiled the city for a 5th straight day. Masked heavily armed members of the Phantom 509 group, who described themselves as the disaffected police officers and ex-officers, told local media they believe their colleagues had been unjustly detained in the Port-au-Prince police station. A deepening economic and political crisis in the poorest country in the Americas has led to a surge in kidnapping and murders as gangs have gained power, turning even areas of the capital and other cities into no-go areas. Meanwhile, Haiti president declared a state of emergency in the worst gang-controlled areas for 1 month in order to allow state security forces to regain control of the situation. Well, young Mauritian marine scientist and activist Shama Sandoya donned a snorkel and dived below the choppy waves at a remote stretch on the western Indian Ocean for the first underwater climate strike. Holding a placard reading "Youth Strike for Climate," Shama held her breath and hoped the images from her action would help spark more aggressive global action to fight climate change. Ahead of Friday's for Future Global Climate Change strike on March 19th, the 24-year-old wants to raise awareness on the importance of seagrass ecosystems. The campaign also hopes to draw attention to the UN's goal of persuading countries to protect at least 30% of the planet's planet's land and ocean by 2030, an interim target that many scientists say must be met to address the dual crisis of climate change and biodiversity loss.
Well, I think the underwater climate strike is very important for me because it raises awareness about the different marine ecosystems, especially here the Saadimala. So basically the Saadimala is composed of mainly the seagrass. So the seagrass, they capture the carbon from the atmosphere and they store it. So that's a huge part of the Saadimala. So basically striking underwater means that we're demanding climate actions, strong climate actions, which includes protecting this huge area because this seagrass ecosystem, they can act as a tool against the climate crisis.
Well, let's now take a look at updates on COVID-19 from across the world. The global COVID-19 cases tally has crossed the 12 crore mark 3 days ago. It now stands at 12 crores 18 lakhs. Tally of recoveries, the only big positive that one looks at when you see these shocking numbers, 9 crore 81 lakhs. Total deaths, 26 lakh 91,000. United States, the worst affected, both in terms of infections as well as fatalities. In terms of infections, over 3 crore 2 lakh cases. When you look at numbers of fatalities in the United States of America, the numbers now crossed 5 lakh 50,000. Well, the French government will impose tougher restrictions for some regions, including Paris, from this weekend to counter the accelerating spread of COVID-19 infections. This was stated by the spokesman Gabriel Attal after a cabinet meeting on Wednesday. The announcement paves the way for new curbs in Greater Paris region, where intensive care wards are full and the hospital system is buckling with an incident rate of more than 400 per lakh inhabitants. Attal said that the new measures for Paris could include some form of lockdown. Weekend lockdowns have already been imposed on top of a nationwide nightly curfew along parts of the Mediterranean Riviera and some parts of the north. Prime Minister Jean Castex will announce the new measures at a news conference later today. France has a total of 41 lakh COVID-19 cases with more than 91,000 deaths. Well, Poland on Wednesday introduced nationwide COVID-19 restrictions as the daily tally of new COVID-19 cases reached the highest level this year. Polish Health Minister has announced the closure of theatres, shopping malls, hotels and cinemas from March 20th until after the Easter holidays. Poland has been implementing regional lockdowns to contain a surge in infections driven by a highly contagious variant first discovered in Britain. The country has 38 million people recorded 25,052 new COVID-19 cases on Wednesday being reported. There are 453 deaths related to COVID-19 on Wednesday. In total, Poland has reported over 19,50,000 COVID-19 cases with more than 48,000 deaths in the European nation. Well, moving to our next story from the world of business. The Federal Reserve on Wednesday projected a rapid jump in U.S. economic growth and inflation this year as the COVID-19 crisis winds down, and repeated its pledge to keep its target interest rate near zero for years to come. The U.S. Central Bank now sees the economy growing at 6.5% this year, predicting the largest annual output growth since 1984, and the unemployment rate falling to 4.5% by the year end, compared to growth of 4.2% and unemployment of 5% projected at its December policy meeting. The pace of price increases is now expected to exceed the Fed's 2% target for the year, hitting 2.4% by the year end before falling back in 2022. The improvement in the Fed's economic outlook did not immediately alter policymakers' expectations for interest rates, though the way of opinion did shift. 7 of the 18 officials now expect a rate increase in the year 2023 as compared to 5 in December.
The FOMC kept interest rates near zero and maintained our sizable asset purchases. These measures, along with our strong guidance on interest rates and on our balance sheet, will ensure that monetary policy will continue to deliver powerful support to the economy until the recovery is complete. The path of the economy continues to depend significantly on the course of the virus and the measures undertaken to control its spread. Overall inflation remains below our 2% longer-run objective. Over the next few months, 12-month measures of inflation will move up as the very low readings from March and April of last year fall out of the calculation. Beyond these base effects, we could also see upward pressure on prices if spending rebounds quickly as the economy continues to reopen, particularly if supply bottlenecks limit how quickly production can respond in the near term.
Well, what's the impact on the market? Wall Street has reacted positively to the particular development, especially when it comes to the prediction by the Fed that's predicted a faster economic recovery from the coronavirus pandemic and said it will maintain its interest rate at close to zero. Wall Street extended gains after Fed Chairman Jerome Powell said during a news conference that it is too early to discuss tapering off measures to support the struggling economy. Following the Fed statement, the yield on the 10-year Treasury ticked lower to 1.63%. Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 0.58% to end at 33,015 points, while the S&P 500 gained 0.29% to close at 3,974. Most of the S&P 500 sector indexes rose, with industrials and consumer discretionary among the strongest performance of the day. Well, how does one look at that particular development there, especially when it comes to the Federal Reserve and the announcements they made on the Indian markets? Well, the Indian markets too looked pretty happy and reacted positively and opened in the green, as both the markets, the Sensex and the Nifty, opened in the green in early session of trade. The Sensex had a jump of 450 points early in the trade, but now at this point of time, slowly wiping off those early profits there, but still in the green. BSE Sensex trading 158 points up at 49,959 or 960 points, while the Nifty up 49 points, trading at 14,770 points. Moving to sports, India will take on England in the 4th match of the T20 series in Ahmedabad later today evening. Indian cricket team would look to level the 5-match T20 series when the Virat Kohli-led Indian side will take on Ian Morgan's England in the 4th T20.
Indian cricket team needs to fix its top order woes ahead of the 4th T20 International, scheduled to take place on Thursday, in order to level the 5-match series against England at Motera Stadium in Ahmedabad. India lost the 3rd T20 match, thus conceding a 1-2 lead to the visitors, who are just one win away from clinching the series. it is expected that England would not make any changes in its playing 11. Indian cricket team needs to make some big calls ahead of the 4th T20 as KL Rahul's poor form continues to haunt India's prospect. Rahul has managed to score only 1 run in 3 innings with 2 ducks attached to his name. Surya Kumar Yadav, who was dropped after his debut game, may replace Rahul in the Indian team's lineup. India would also look to bring in Navdeep Saini in its playing 11 as sheer pace can do wonders on the tricky Motera wicket. The toss is again going to be crucial in the match as the team batting second has won all the 3 matches played so far. It has been observed that as the night temperature cools down, the Motera wicket becomes favorable for batting, while in the first innings the ball is not coming onto the bat. However, Virat Kohli displayed how to bat on the pitch with a masterclass knock in the 3rd T20 match. The big square boundaries at Motera also make it hard for power hitters to go for big runs. The visitors have used the long boundaries to their own advantage as speedsters Jofra Archer and Mark Wood used the short ball ploy successfully against the Indian batsmen. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, cricket legend and iconic commentator Sunil Gavaskar feels that women's cricket is more elegant than men's cricket and they added more dimensions to the game which make them unstoppable.
I think somebody who is such a role model. I mean, look at the number of years that she's been playing. You know, that takes some courage to be able to play. That takes some dedication to be able to play. That takes some determination to hang in there. Because remember, for the better part of her career, she didn't quite have the sort of exposure and the support that women's cricket is getting now. And it's so good to see them play because, you know, I mean, I think that women's cricket is any day more elegant, more stylish than the men's game. And now they're beginning to play the power game as well.
Well, the cricketer who was recently felicitated on the 50th anniversary of his test debut lays a lot of stress on fitness. At 71, Sunil Gavaskar is able to balance, travel and work easily thanks to the fitness mantra he follows.
Foodie. So, you know, I mean, I eat very little. That's been the case, you know, since I was growing up. I've been eating very little. So that's a big plus. Maybe about 6 or 7 days in a year, I'll eat like I've come out of a famine. But otherwise, I'm very controlled as far as my eating is concerned. I'm also pretty regular as far as exercise is concerned. I do a lot of speed walking. I've got shin splints, so I can't run. I couldn't run even when I was playing. I couldn't do long distance running. I had to do short 22 yards, 66 yards sprinting, but I couldn't do long distance. So I still do a lot of speed walking. And like I said, you know, I have a lot more control over my eating. So I guess, you know, that's helped me.
Well, moving to football and Champions League. First up, well, Chelsea are through to the quarterfinals of the UEFA Champions League. They have been in super form. They beat Atletico Madrid 2-0 for the night to make it a 3-0 aggregate win and sail into the last 8 of the UEFA Champions League. 2 goals coming from Hakim Ziyech and Emerson Pelleri, both on target, giving Thomas Tuchel, the new coach, something to smile. Well, Robert Lewandowski knows how to make Bayern Munich their tick, and he once again did it for the night as Bayern Munich are through to the quarterfinals of the Champions League. They are the defending champions, but Bayern beat the Italian club 2-1 at home on Wednesday to seal a 6-2 aggregate win and a place in the last 8 of the UEFA Champions League. Well, the head creative director of the opening and closing along with the Paralympic Games, that's the Tokyo Summer Games and Paralympic Games, has stepped down. That's Hiroshi Sasaki has stepped down after making a derogatory comment about a woman. Hiroshi's resignation came swiftly after the weekly magazine, the Shukan Bunshun, reported his remarks there on Wednesday. He was named the head of the creative team in December as Olympic organizers look to revamp plans for simplified ceremonies out of the Tokyo Games was pushed back a year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The Olympics or the Summer Games are scheduled to start from July 3rd to the 8th of August and the Paralympics from August 24th to September 5th. Well, that's all we have time for in this edition of news, but we leave you with an image that could have a lasting impression on you, that could make you smile, that could make your day memorable. And we go all the way, as you know, in the post-pandemic world, we've got a theme park that's opened in Japan. Let's take a look at those images. But you do not forget to take good care of yourself. Wear your mask at all times. It's not because you want to protect yourself, but because you also care for your loved ones. So do not forget to do that. Wash your hands, use a hand sanitizer, maintain social distancing. All this we have been saying for long, but do not forget that the battle against COVID-19 continues. And as the Prime Minister said, it's time to act now. So do not forget and keep your vigil against the battle against COVID-19. Bye-bye.